Today, if you find this message, it was definitely meant to be. I hope you gain something from what I have to deliver. Oddly enough, I come riding obviously on 280 white horses provided by my father. I'm very blessed, and I hope that I can bless as many people as would have it be. Out here in this great country, I see this great land. And today I'd like to talk about the parable of the vineyard. It has a lot of deep meanings to a lot of different people, a lot of different meanings. But first I'll go into not a biblical teaching, but the book of warfare. It's taught in West Point. I don't know if it still is. But in the beginning of this book, it outlines the perils of war. It's basically a warning against going to war against other peoples and the costs that it entails. And then ensues in how to commit warfare if you'd like to do so, if you're willing to ignore the first warning, and goes through a long tale about all the perils of war and the advantages that one can have in war. But if you take advantages, then you will fall victim, or I guess be subject to the perils of war, which is a great message in and of itself if you're willing to listen to just the first bit. This is kind of why I want to go into the parables of the vineyard. You know, the vineyard, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. But if we look at the book in the very last page, I am the Alpha, I am the Omega, I am the beginning and the end. The first shall be the last and the last shall be the first. We're all counted as equals under God's eyes.
For the past several years,
And
organist
in
James
the
D.
story
Higgs has
of the
recorded
parable
an
of the
ever-growing
vineyard,
series of CDs featuring organ music
people
of
go
the
to
Nordic
work and
region.
they're
Volume
promised a
10 in the
wage, and
series,
they
with
start
music of
work, and
Danish
then in the
composers,
middle,
has been
more
released
people
recently
join and
on
they
the
get the
Pro
same
Organo
wage, and
label.
more
And from
people
that
join at the very end of the
we'll
work,
hear
and they
Cantalena
get the
by
same
Anna
wage.
Moe.
And a lot of people say, yeah, well, the last people, the most undeserving people, or the lowliest of people, unjustly got the same pay. But really, I guess the message is equals. And then even deeper, and this is my personal opinion and my personal message, is in that story we see a vineyard owner that has workers that work for him, and there's some inequity in that picture alone. And it kind of like the art of warfare, it's the middle story. It's the perils of war, the perils of inequity. And the message I gained from this is that in inequity, finding equality, and that message is, if we were walking in a path of equity and equality, then should not we seek to each have our vineyard and all work together with our vineyards, rather than separate each other from workers and owners and things of that sort, and in many different senses. But yesterday I was speaking with a lovely lady, and she reminded me that, you know, everything is where you start, where you begin. Where you are is where you're at. It is the beginning, the end, the Alpha, the Omega. You are you, where you are, and that is who you are at any given moment. And I just happen to have a great example of this. You know, my vineyard has been planted several times, and I've had to restart, and I often get discouraged. I was recently able to save one of my crop stalks that's definitely become somewhat of a family vine, so to speak. And I'll show it to you here. Here it sits. It looks worse for wear, But the story of this grape is how it made it through such perils. It was brought over into parts of Idaho a long time ago, made it through all the weather there, made it through the weather here in Oregon, after being planted from seeds from the original one that made it across the trail into Oregon, or into Idaho rather, and finally made its way to Oregon, where it was on the trail headed to. And I'm sure some of its family members eventually made it, but it made it here through its seed. And that transcends everything. And the message of compassion transcends everything. I had friends in high school that would listen to, well, I did too. I still do. I listen to all sorts of music, punk rock, metal, jazz. But the parents of this one individual threw away all of his punk music, saying that, it was bad and evil. But I was confused by this, in that in the words, I found the words of God. And they were perceived as negative from somebody else's perspective. But if you're willing to find it, it's there no matter what. You can find the wisdom and the words of God in everything if you're willing to seek. And, where you are is where you're at. And there's no better place to start than here. And even if you're restarting, just like this grape, start with what you have, and put your faith and trust and effort into it, and it will grow. And you'll find equality in making your way and the Lord's way, or the way that you find. If you seek a way, the way will be provided. So here we go on another adventure of starting this vineyard. God bless.